All right, everybody. Today I want to talk about the election that's coming up. At the time of this recording, I think it's like 4 days until the election. So, we've got a lot going on. There's a lot of interesting things that are coming up because there's already early voting, which is going on in many states across the country. They have already allowed early voting. So there are people that have been flooding to the polls. So, there's a lot of votes that are already underway because of the early voting in many different states right now. So a lot of states are already getting an idea as to who the people are choosing for president in those states. Now, anything is possible, anything can happen. There are many different factors when it comes to voting. There are some people who vote early. That's a specific type of person, and they tend to vote a certain way. Then there are people who mail in their ballots. Those take time to read, but that's also a different type of person who will vote a specific way. And then you have people who show up on the polls the day of. So, anything is possible. There are all different types of people who vote in, the way they see fit for them. And that could change the election, even though it's going one way right now, or at least looks that way. Anything is possible. But I do want to make a few things clear today. And it's just because we're before the election, so hindsight's always 2020. But it's just good to take a look at these things ahead of time because if stuff does happen, it's nice to be able to go back and have a record of that stuff. Especially if people in the media that are reporting on certain things now may take that stuff away in the future, depending on how the election turns out. Maybe they decide to delete and clear a lot of the news that was reported on before the election because they're trying to maybe rewrite the narrative. So anything is possible, and this is a very heated election. We can clearly see that there's a lot of controversy around this election. There's a lot of people who are very adamant about getting Trump into office, and there's also a lot of people who are very adamant about getting Kamala into office. Not to mention, there's a lot of money on the line. There's a lot of donors who invested in these politicians. There's a lot of people who even placed bets on these politicians and the outcome. So that alone is incentive enough for people to do, really crazy things in order to get their politician in office. But what is even bigger incentive is the mindset of, what people believe this nation should look like and where it should be headed. And on the right, you have a lot of people who are very pro-Trump that, believe that this may be the last election. And if Trump doesn't get in, it could catastrophically negatively impact the future of this nation to the point where elections may not be fair and free anymore. And they actually have a valid point, especially now. As of today, there's a lot of proof of potential voter fraud and active voter fraud that's going on in this 2024 presidential election. But also on the flip side, the Democrats and their supporters adamantly believe that Donald Trump is a fascist dictator, whatever, Hitler type personality, and that he is planning on, conquering the world or whatever it is that they believe. So on both sides, you do have people who are very strongly passionate about getting their candidate into office. So with that, anything is possible. And over the next few days, you may see a lot of wild and crazy things happen. Also be prepared because you may see a lot of violence. You may see a lot of people on either side rioting, protesting the outcome of the election. You may see a lot of uh, spin from the media, either way, either, promoting one candidate or over the other, or bashing one because they were the victor. So this election really is anybody's guess at this moment. But I do want to show you a few things just so we could kind of time capsule this stuff and, see where things are in the next 4 days and maybe go back and look at this as, like I said, a time capsule. But this is currently where the election stands as of right now with early voting and with the sentiment from people who are, basically, not just betting, but assuming who the candidate is going to be, and that's over a vast number of people in the country. It's not just your average citizen. Wall Street, big investment companies, people in politics, not just politicians, people who have major corporations. They're all kind of at this point assuming who the next president is going to be, and so they're actually taking action and planning accordingly for that. That's why over the next few days, you're going to see the stock market and crypto and different, industries, do a lot of weird things because it's going to be based on what the sentiment is around who everybody believes the next president is going to be. And like I said, it's anybody's guess right now because anything could happen. But let's just take a quick look at what the sentiment is right now for where generally the polls and everything are showing who the victor will potentially be. So right now, it looks like most polls have on a national level Trump up by almost a point. So he's in the lead at this moment. And like I said, anything is possible. We really don't know, what this election is going to turn out to be. But as of right now, especially with early voting, giving an idea as to, what the potential outcome is going to be, it does look like Trump is going to win this election. Don't bet on that entirely and stay home and think Trump has it in the bag. If you're supporting Trump and you want to see him win, don't sit home on your hands and think that this is in the bag because it's not. It really does come down to the very last vote. Anything is possible, and every single vote does count. There are a lot of people that just kind of, and I think this happened for a long time in this country. I mean, back in the day, people used to vote pretty much like not almost, because I don't think you've ever gotten to a point in America or any country that allowed voting that every single member of that country has voted. But in the past, almost the entire country would vote in these elections because they knew how important it was. As time went on, especially through the 1900s, a lot less people voted. From, I would say, maybe the 1960s to now has been the biggest decline in American history of people voting. Yeah, the population is bigger, so the amount of people number-wise that have voted is definitely bigger because naturally our population is bigger, but the percentage of the population is definitely decreased. It's gone back up over the last couple of elections because, especially with Trump coming in and being such a polarizing figure, it has encouraged a lot of people on both sides to vote. People to vote against him because they didn't want to see him in office, and people to vote for him because they did want to see him in office. So you do have a resurgence of voters in this country again, which is nice to see because people really should vote. And that's another thing I do want to make clear to people. You want to take a look at Article 2 of the Constitution. You want to see, to get a better idea, to understand how the voting process works in this country. It talks about the electors. It talks about the president and Congress. It explains and breaks down how that whole voting process goes. It, really helps you understand, maybe some of the stuff that you see in the media where they're saying one thing, it's actually contradictory to what the Constitution says, which is the law of the land. And it still continues to be, even though people are acting like it's not. It is. It has not been repealed. It has not been taken down. It has not been, officially destroyed in this nation. It's just been undermined. Just because people don't follow the law doesn't make the law no longer the law. It just means you're breaking the law. But take a look at Article 2 when you have a chance and look at that whole section because it really does explain specifically about how voting works in this country. And it'll also help people understand because there's a lot of people that are talking about abolishing the Electoral College. It'll help you understand, too, about that process and why it's so important to our constitutional republic. See, a lot of times I think that people, especially in the media, will try and use the argument that we're a democracy and, the Electoral College is like, maybe slowing things down or holding us back or infringing on our democracy. Well, that's all lies. It's not, our country is not a democracy. I've said this many times in videos in the past, and it's important to bring that word back because words really do matter. not not where we should obsess over them, but they matter in the sense that we should know what their meanings are and we should use them appropriately. There are so many people today who lack education, especially with language, that they're not even using words correctly. And because of that, and also going to slang terminology, we don't really understand what's going on in this world today because we don't even know what we're literally talking about. So you definitely want to learn the definitions of certain words and understand what those words mean for real because they do matter and they matter in many different areas in our lives, especially politically. But take a look at Article 2. You do want to see that to learn more about the voting system in this country. And you might especially want to do it before this election, just so you can have a better understanding of how the voting process works in this country. Um, but also too, because there's a lot of interesting things going on um, during, especially this early voting, which is kind of a beta test for the actual voting day. It's good to see that they had this early voting. It may not be entirely, um, you know, the correct way to do voting. Voting should really be on one day and one day only. But this has kind of given everybody a sneak peek into what election day may be like. If this is the type of shenanigans that the politicians and people involved in this process are pulling now, this will only show a sign of what's to come on election day. So just assume election day is going to be very hectic, very crazy, not just because of the crowds, but also there will probably be a lot of shenanigans going on. I've seen a lot of you know, uh, things that were either illegal or borderline illegal that had occurred within these last two elections from the first one that Trump had, won in 2016 and then in 2020. There's just been so many things that people were doing that were either, like I said, borderline illegal or flat out illegal. And we're seeing a lot of that stuff now with the early voting process. The good thing is a lot of people on in certain areas of government and outside of government are helping to expose it now so that we can get a handle on it so that when election day does officially come, we can hopefully expose the corruption or minimize it. Or if we can't minimize it, at least expose it so that however this election goes and the outcome is finalized, it will be legitimate and not illegitimate because of fraud. But I do want to show you some of the stuff that is going on right now. So first, let's take a look at this one that appears to be happening in Pennsylvania. And if we look, the date on this is today, November 1st. Pennsylvania investigates fraudulent voter applications. So multiple counties in Pennsylvania are investigating allegations of fraudulent voter registration and mail-in ballot applications ahead of the election. Um, they're saying that approximately 30 voter registration forms have been flagged as irregular, with many showing signs of forgery, including incorrect personal information and non-existent addresses. So you may look at that and say, all right, well, what does that really mean? Maybe, it is, maybe it's not. But if you look, you have the Lancaster County detectives uncovered hundreds of suspicious applications. So now this is bigger than the 30 now. And it says bore identical handwriting and coordinated effort to submit fraudulent registrations. So the detectives are involved, and these people are, this is what they do for a living. There's different departments in the police, and they do different things. Some detectives solve murder crimes, and some go after white collar crimes, one of which being fraud. And voter fraud is something that they're looking into during this election. But their expertise is going to be to analyze handwriting, to correlate, different the ballots to see similarities in between them and determine what stuff is, maybe an accident, mistake, and then what stuff is seems like a coordinated effort. So they're saying, based on the detective's analysis, this is not a conspiracy. This is a hired government official that has been put in this position as a detective, work their way up to become detective, and their expertise is identifying fraud, apparently, if they're good at their job. Um, and they're saying that not one, but hundreds have been identified and flagged as being fraudulent. So the discussion in the past with Trump bringing up voter fraud for the 2020 election has been a topic of discussion where, people were saying there was none in 2020. Okay, fine. Even if there wasn't, which there's enough allegations out there to at least bring it to court and have the court decide if there was or not. But even if there wasn't in 2020, now in 2024, we're seeing that there actually is. This is legitimate. This is a police official, a detective who is explaining that they are finding voter fraud. They are finding coordinated efforts where somebody's probably filling out multiple ballots, but it's the same person, and they're identifying the handwriting as through their analysis as being identical. That somebody's doing this as a coordinated effort to basically vote the same way, but on multiple different ballots, and the addresses don't match up. The names may be fake. So there's no more, like back in 2020, there's no more, oh, we don't have proof. So far, as of right now, if the news is reporting correctly, and if the detectives are, being honest in their assessment, which I don't see why they wouldn't be, that's what their job is. That's what they get paid to do. And this is a very high stakes election. I don't think they would want the publicity on them if they can't back up with proof what they're saying. Most police officers are genuinely, just trying to do their job and stop criminals from breaking the law, right? So, they're saying that there is clear evidence of voter fraud. So there's no more discussion about the past with 2020. We are seeing actual signs of voter fraud right now in 2024. It's happening at this moment. And if it's happening with early voting, it's only going to get worse on election day. At least we can estimate that is gonna be the case. So let's continue here. So that's that seemed to focus on probably paper ballots and mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania. But now let's take a look at this here. So some might think, that's the problem with mail-in ballots, paper ballots. Well, here is a case in Michigan. So now you have multi-state fraud. Okay, this is now leading to a national concerted effort to steal the election. Pennsylvania is one state, so that could be an isolated event. Well, this is now Michigan. Michigan Republicans report that there's a glitch in the Michigan voting machines that's producing duplicate ballots. Okay, so Republicans said they uncovered a glitch that would have resulted in multiple duplicate ballots being cast in Michigan. Lara Trump, who is the co-chair of the RNC, found thousands of duplicate ballots. Now, I want you to understand, thousands of votes is enough to sway an election in a state, especially one that's so polarizing right now. It's probably going to be a very close election unless there is a landslide in one person's favor. And based on the sentiment of what the pollsters and what the general public is saying, it's not my opinion. It's alleged and believed that Donald Trump is going to win this election. Now, if he were to win, and if there is active voter fraud going on, he would have to win by such a massive landslide that they are not able to steal the election because they can't produce enough votes in order to steal it. So what seems like it's happening to me is that, and this is just my assessment of the situation so far. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just making an assessment based on what I'm seeing from what the news is putting out, what government officials are putting out. It seems to me like there's a mad dash to ensure that Donald Trump doesn't win the election because the sentiment is that he's going to win, and it's likely based on the voter turnout so far, even with early election voting, that he may possibly win in a landslide if he's already up ahead a lot now, and it's only early voting on the day of. It's possible that he might win by a lot. So it appears that maybe whoever does not want him to win is likely doing everything they can to ensure that he doesn't win by getting as many votes in the system as possible in the favor of the other candidate. Now, I think the reason that they may be getting caught is twofold. It seems because Lara Trump is now in the co-chair of the RNC. She's now responsible for ensuring that the election is free and fair for the Republican candidate because she's part of the Republican Party now. So she seems to be doing her job. She's holding everybody accountable and making sure that, they are not going to steal this election. If any fraud is found, it's going to be uncovered and it's going to be exposed. I think the other thing is criminals tend to typically trip up when they're in a hurry or when they are desperate. Those are the two big times that criminals tend to really trip up. And it seems like there's a lot of desperation coming out of the other side, and that they may be desperate because they may see that the sentiment is that Trump is going to win. And if he does win, he may possibly win in a landslide. So they may have to be, you know, may have to work extra hard to ensure that he absolutely does not win. And in their efforts of doing that, they're likely going to flood the system, the ballot boxes and everything with as many votes as they possibly can, even if they're fraudulent. So it seems that out of their desperation, they are making a mistake by exposing themselves in all this. They're not doing it in a sly way. They're doing it in a very sloppy way that's getting caught. It's getting them caught. I mean, the detectives are easily finding these similarities in the ballots with just simple handwriting analysis. So, this does not seem like it's going to go well. And Donald Trump did say if he's elected and there is voter fraud found, everybody who's involved will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and jail time will likely be punishment. So the people that are doing this, and I have seen many different things so far. I've seen, allegedly postal workers involved, allegedly uh, some other people, but can't remember exactly what other job they held. But let's just say hypothetically, people are involved in the postal service or people at the polling places are involved because they have inside access. Also, I will show you something in a moment. Actually, I'll show you right now just to so that we can stay on topic here. So this is an article from the Detroit News. It's about a Chinese student faces criminal charges for voting in the Michigan ballot. Their vote is allegedly going to count, even though they know that it's fraudulent. This is October 30th of this year, so this is actually just 2 days ago. It's still very fresh, so this is happening in this election. It's not a previous election. And this is the Detroit News, which is in Michigan, and they're reporting on something that's happening in their own state. So it's a legitimate news source. It's not some fringe website. And this is a person who is a student, probably here on a visa, from China, apparently, and they are partaking in voter fraud. So back to my point here, if you're a person or a person who's involved in this voter fraud in any way, if they're a postal worker, if they're somebody working the polling station, if they're anybody at all that's engaging in this, you got to understand you are making a decision that can permanently impact your life. You may not want to see somebody get elected that you don't want to, you don't like, and you think they're bad for the country. But if you engage in voter fraud, you are going to mess your life up more than whatever positive thing you think you're going to do by stopping this person from getting in office. It's going to negatively impact you more than you're going to help. So it's best to just not involve yourself in that way. If you truly want to stand for what you believe in. Just go to the ballot box and vote. That's it. Vote on election day, or if you have early voting in your area, vote. But don't commit fraud because it will come back on you. And take this Chinese student, for example. They're likely here on a student visa. So, if they are and they're convicted of voter fraud, think about the repercussions that are going to come of that. They will likely be prosecuted in America. If convicted, could likely serve jail time. So now you're going to do jail time in a foreign country, away from anybody you know, and you're going to be there for however many years. That's years of your life that you're not getting back. And then on top of that, you're going to lose your student visa, so your studies are going away. You're going to basically lose your chance at getting a good education and then taking that education into the workforce to start your life. And then on top of that, you'll probably be extradited back to your country, and you will probably lose any right to citizenship you could have ever had. So if you're coming here on a student visa to learn, and then the idea is to, maybe one day get your green card and become a citizen, you are going to lose that because once you're convicted for felony, which this is, voter fraud is a felony charge. If you're convicted for that, you're going to lose everything. So everything you're coming to this country to study and learn and work for is going to go away because you're involving yourself in fraud. Don't do it. Take a lesson from this person and do not get involved in the fraud. Either way, even if you're a Trump supporter, don't get involved in the fraud. Do not engage yourself with trying to stop Kamala and get Trump in. Go to the ballot box and vote, but do it honestly and let the chips fall where they may. But it's not a good idea to vote to be fraudulent with your vote because you're going to cost yourself so much more. So that is that person. I do want to take a look at a couple more things. One of which is this. Now, we are seeing some wins. When I say wins, I mean that you are seeing some politicians or people in the judicial system fight against this fraudulent efforts to, steal the election. And that's a really good thing. Either way, you don't want elections that are stolen either way, because in the future, you may, find another candidate that you like really good, but, if the system doesn't want them, they're going to continue to steal them. And the Democrats, this goes for you too. If you're opening up a floodgate that maybe one day in the future, there's a Democrat politician that's running that you really want to see in office, but the Republicans steal it from them. You don't want to open up those floodgates. So it's best to not, like I said, engage in any of that. But we are seeing some wins. This judge from Arizona ordered that the Democrat Secretary of State had to release a list of 218,000 registered voters who did not provide proof of citizenship. Now, there's a lot of talk around the whole proof of citizenship situation because there are some areas that are, not quite clear or decided on whether or not people do need to produce identification in order to vote. And that is something that the judicial system will have to figure out at some point in this nation because IDs aren't going away. In some fashion, they will remain. But also, it needs to be decided at some point how we're going to do this election process going forward. Whether or not people have to provide ID will eventually become the law of the land. But 218,000 people who were registered to vote didn't provide citizenship. Now, that doesn't mean 218,000 people aren't citizens. It just means they didn't provide citizenship. But out of that number, even if you take half or 25%, whatever it is, you're talking likely 50 to 100,000 people might not be citizens and voting in Arizona's state election. You have to understand that's enough votes to swing an election on the national level that could win the presidency. So that's a huge problem if there are that many people that are illegal, not citizens of America, but voting in our elections. This is why you have to be, a citizen of America to vote in our elections, because otherwise outside forces who don't like us can come in, they can vote in our elections, and they can sway our country in a way that they want us to be run based on the politics in their country. That's not constitutional, and that's not going to ever be for a free and fair society. It will never work. That's how you get corruption, and that's how you get countries that get overthrown and taken over and conquered. So we don't want to see that. So that's a good win. And I'm just reading the headlines for these articles, so feel free to go and check out the full articles yourself. I'm not going to sit here and read all the articles with you, but definitely check them out yourself if it's something that you're interested in looking at a little further. But here is something that I'm actually majorly concerned with, and this is the problem with voting machines. Um, they really cannot be thoroughly trusted because, number one, they're privately owned. They're not owned by the United States government. They're owned by private corporations. So you're giving a private corporation the ability to determine our elections because they program the software. They're the ones that can, set the algorithms and stuff like that, and ultimately modify things as they see fit. Yes, they can get in a lot of legal trouble, but they're making a deal with the United States government and they're letting them have the machines. That's why it's so important to have paper ballots. Paper ballots should and never, hopefully, will go away in this country because it's the one sure way to really determine whether or not something is legitimate. Look how easily the detectives in Pennsylvania were able to determine through handwriting analysis that the ballots were fraudulent and that they correlated because it was the same person filling them out. And that happened allegedly on hundreds of ballots. So that is something that can easily be done with a paper ballot. With a digital ballot, it's not as easy because the printer just prints the ink on a certain circle, right? It fills in the hole, but ink is all the same. It doesn't go through an analysis in that way like a handwriting does, where it can be matched to a certain person. So it's a lot harder to determine. Yeah, you can go in and get access to the hard drive, and you can actually, see on the back end what's going on. But if you don't have access to the machine, you might not be able to. Um, and there are many people, hackers especially, who have proven that you can hack voting machines. So think about another country like China or Russia, another superpower that maybe doesn't want to see a certain person become the American president. They could hack our voting machines and they could change the outcome of our election because they have their own political gains. But this was a really interesting one. This is an actual sitting member of Congress. So this is not some random person on the internet who maybe does have the truth, maybe doesn't have the truth. This is an active member of Congress posting about this on her Instagram. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is a member of Congress, like I said, posting a video of somebody trying to vote for Donald Trump.
Why it automatically did it?
Did you push right there? Or did you
Yes,
push right
I
there?
pushed right there. Why it automatically did it?
Now, I did notice in the video that the person did not click in the middle of that of the candidate's line item, but they clicked on the left hand side. Maybe there was a glitch in the system. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe it was intentional. Who knows, right? You don't know because you can't see the algorithm. You don't see what's going on behind in the software and the hardware. So until that's actually figured out by anybody who may or may not investigate the voting machines after this election, we will really not know for sure. However, it brings back my point that the paper ballots are a more secure way to vote. Yes, they probably take a lot longer to count, but they have to be hand counted anyway. So, having the machines, all it really does is add a step. And I think a lot of times people think that technology makes things quicker or better or more efficient. That's not always the case. A lot of times it adds a step, right? Think about texting, for example. When you text somebody, it may take you 10 or 15 texts back and forth with that person. And that could be how many minutes of time taken out of your day, not to mention typing, constantly going back to your phone to look at what they had to say and read it and your brain to process that. It's so much quicker to just pick up a phone and make a phone call, right? Because you're getting all your words out quicker. They're hearing it and responding in real time. Texting is actually kind of a backward step. We've gone backward in that way, right? Um, you know, email may be more efficient than writing a letter because you don't have to mail the letter out and have to deal with the post office getting it, receiving it, delivering it. That may be a better, more efficient process technologically. But texting is actually slower and less efficient than a phone call. And the phone was invented in the late 1800s, right? I believe Alexander Graham Bell invented it. Back when the phone numbers were literally single digits. So talk about technology, an example of technology not making things more efficient and better. Well, this is another example too. This is a major election. This is a presidential election that will determine the next 4 years, possibly even 8 years if Kamala gets 2 terms uh, in our country, in our country's future. So you really don't want to have glitches on the day of the election. And if this is happening with these machines, this is a huge problem. What if that was an elderly person that really couldn't, see too well, and then as soon as they hit the button, they thought they saw the green, they thought it registered, and they went on with their day. Their vote would have been for somebody that they didn't want in that scenario. Um, so the voting machines don't necessarily make things better. If you can request a paper ballot when you get to the polling place, you might want to do that just so that you could have a hard copy and put pen to paper, and then at least, there'll be some sort of, you know, handwriting involved for analysis later on. Not to mention the machine can't glitch and give you the wrong person. But also when you get your ballots, I'm pretty sure the machines will always print them out and show you who you voted for. Now, the hard copy may not match digitally what's inside the computer and what's being sent to the polling people counting the votes, whether it's digitally or hand. But at least if you get the printed copy and that's your proof, that's your evidence, always make sure you look at that ballot before you hand it back into the polling person, because you want to make sure that the people that you selected, that you voted for in the machine, is what's printed on the paper. So always double check that. And, maybe even take a picture of it too, just so you have a record of it. um, but you do want to make sure that you're voting for who you truly want, whoever that is. If it's Kamala or Trump, that's up to you. That's your own personal choice. But these are just some instances of voter fraud that we are already seeing in this country during this 2024 presidential election. So it's important to expose the corruption on either side, no matter who's doing it. It wouldn't even matter if it was Trump's party. Anybody who's engaging in corruption or fraud is breaking the law. It's illegal, and they should be held accountable for it. But in this instance, a lot of the corruption seems to be around, um, you know, uh, the against Trump's winning the presidency. So I can't say for certain that it's coming from the Democrats, but I can say that there does seem to be a concerted effort against Trump winning. And it does seem like some people are willing to commit fraud in order to do that. Not to mention the people who are for the fraud, um, the Democrats keep voting and approving everything that's unconstitutional, like letting illegals, non-citizens vote in this election. That's illegal. It's not constitutional. You have to be an American to vote in our elections. Um, and also keeping in um, you know uh, finding these duplicate votes if they're not taken out and they're counted. That's fraud. But the only people that seem to be fighting for stuff that's not legal or lawful in this election so far seems to be the Democrats, just based on what I'm seeing in the media. And the Republicans seem to be fighting pretty hard to expose a lot of that corruption, which tells you it's likely not coming from the Republicans, because why would they commit the fraud and then expose themselves? So, some of these things are allegations. It's alleged that this stuff may be happening, but some of it is actively being proven. Like I said, in Pennsylvania, the detectives are saying this is fraud. They're seeing a problem with these ballots, and their handwriting analysis is telling them the same person is filling out multiple ballots. That's fraud. That's illegal. It's a felony. So when you have a chance, go to the polling station. If you can vote early in your county or whatever. If you can't, vote on election day. But whatever it is, just be prepared for um, disruptions, and don't give up. If you truly want to vote in this election and you truly want to have your voice heard, don't give up. Go to the polling station, vote, stick it out no matter what it takes. I want you to see one last thing here. So this is in the Constitution, where it talks about the 15th Amendment talks about the right to vote, right? It says the right of the citizen of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Congress shall have the power to enforce the article. Okay, so basically the key takeaway for that is, and this is really what the key takeaway is, right? The key takeaway is that not that the government gives us the right to vote, we inherently have a right to vote just by being Americans. The Congress cannot stop our right to vote. Okay, that's a key thing. And it really comes down to no one, because it even says that it should not be abridged by the United States or any state, right? So no one involved in the United States government or any state or federally can stop your right to vote. You have a right to vote. So if you're standing in line and they tell you the polling, line ends here and anybody after that, can't vote, that's illegal. They cannot stop your right to vote. You have a right to vote. So if you're being told to get off the line, stay on line, stand your ground. Make sure you get in there, get a ballot, and vote. Whatever it is, don't break the law. Don't get into a fist fight with anybody. Don't threaten anybody. Don't do anything illegal to cause them to actually have the right to, detain you, arrest you, whatever. Just stand your ground. You have a right as an American to vote, and no one can stop that. That's the key. You don't have the right to vote. You have the right to vote inherently. No one can stop that. That's the real key behind that amendment. And if you look at the Constitution, that's how everything is pretty much written. It says Congress shall not, stop us from having free speech or guns or this or that. We have the right to even be free and walk around. Fourth Amendment has the right to, be within your own person. Not have illegal searches and seizures. Not be basically accosted or harassed by anybody. These are rights that are inherent given to us by God and the fact that we are Americans. We are free. This country was founded on and built for the people to run it, not the government to run the people. So stand your ground, stick to what you believe, and if you truly want to vote in this election, get out there and vote for whoever you're voting for. Yeah, that's it for this video. Good luck at the polls this year, and I will try and possibly make another video on election day to talk about what's going on. And we'll see how that goes. Might even do a live stream. I'm not sure if I have the technological capabilities right now. As you can see, I do have some minor glitch issues with these videos, but I'm working on fixing them. They are noted. So if I can't do a live stream, I'm going to try and maybe do a pre-recorded video for election day just so we can get an idea as to what's going on that day. And we'll take it from there. All right, everybody. See you on the next one. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that stuff. But that's it for this video. All right, everybody. Just want to take a moment to promote my children's book, Little Boy Full of Love. That's me on the back. And this is a little sneak peek on the inside. So it's a great book. I wrote this book for my son. It's a children's book. It's actually available right now on Amazon, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Indigo, Bookshop.org, and a lot of online websites. But more importantly to me, it's available on in a lot of physical bookstores throughout the country. We're in about 15 or 16 different states right now. And we have all that information posted as to which bookstores the book is physically in on my Instagram page. You can go there to see if there's a bookstore near you. We highly, highly recommend if you do buy it from the bookstore because we want to support small businesses. And we love, small business. It's the backbone of this country. It always has, and it should continue to remain that way. And when you buy from a local small business, you're helping them, continue to be the backbone of this country. So check it out at a physical bookstore near you. You can find that, like I said, on my Instagram. But if you can't get it at a bookstore near you or one of them is not near you, you can buy it directly from our Amazon storefront. That actually has a lot of products besides the book that we actually highly recommend, things that we use in our daily lives, all listed by category, so you can shop just based on the categories that interest you. The holidays are coming up, Christmas and Hanukkah and many other holidays through the end of this year, November and December. So if the holiday is coming up that you celebrate, and you want to gift somebody something, with the book, you could actually just ship it directly from the Amazon storefront to their house, save you on a lot of, inconveniences during the holidays. But if you want to get something else, check out, like I said, the store. And we also have the apparel shop too. All that information is going to be in all of the show notes in all the videos for Rumble, YouTube, and Spotify, any other platform that I'm on. But it's also in all my bios on all those, as well as Instagram. So check all that stuff out, and start getting your stuff for the holidays. All right, everybody, take care. That's it for this video. Stay tuned for the next one.